just came back from Tokyo. I met with Takashi Kigami. He will definitely say that somebody like Sophia is an agent, is an autonomous agent. Yeah, so that's something comes from humans. But what I want to do in the rest of my talk is like I want to step back and going back to the biological system, biological basis of our bodies, and bring them back to the animal and to the cells. And this is the radical part, because up to now, I tried to build a case that actually, in order to understand what is human intelligence and human experiences, is not enough to take the other-centric perspective and individualistic perspective. I hope I convince you of that. Yeah. If that's the case, this means that before we get neurons, I mean, neurons are one single type of cells. Yeah, and these are not the first cells that are developing in our bodies. So we have different type of cells that are developing before. Yeah. So what I want to do is just like forget about the neurons for a while. And let's go back to more fundamental, like let's say, components of our embodiment, embodied selfhood, and that should be the cells. And in doing this, I'm basically following Pamela Ryan, who takes what she calls a biogenic approach to cognition. I highly recommend you this paper. It opened my eyes. And basically, she contrasts the anthropogenic with biogenic approach to cognition. She says, well, if you take, yeah, so let's go back to my slide here. So if you take the human as a paradigmatic case of cognition, yeah, and then you try to just like scale down to understand how this like type of capability you find them in other different systems. But the biogenic approach is like to look at whatever we have in common with other type of like biological living system. So instead of focusing what makes us special, playing chess, in order to understand the fundamental bits, we need to understand what connects us with the rest of the living system. Yeah, not what set us apart, but actually what we have in common, what is really important. Yeah, and so you start with the facts of biology as the basis of theorizing. It works up to the human case by asking psychological questions as if they were biological questions. So, as I said, I'm Aristotelian, and this is Aristotelian too, right? And it's super important. And so when I started to do interdisciplinary work, so even now I'm based at the Institute of Cognitive Neuroscience. So necessarily people, link cognitive system with neural systems and, cognitive processing with neural processing, that's kind of like the received view. But what we try to do with a bunch of other people is say, maybe that comes from against like the other-centric lens, and we should get rid of that. And if we start with really biological self-organizing system, we should look actually at the level of more basic level of cellular processing rather than just like neural processing, and understanding how cognitive processing related to body self-would get off the ground. Hopefully I'm going to become clear in the next slides, because I know it's radical, and please ask me a question later on about this. So we have this paper that came out last year, which actually had a lot of downloads, but very few citations, because I think people are kind of like, I'm not sure how to cite this. It's interesting, everybody reads this, it's like, oh, this is super radical. But what we want to say is like, we want to basically solve the very distinction between the brain and body. Yeah. So the mental processes that somehow are in the brain, and the bodily processing that somehow are in the body. So we're zooming out from the neurons, we zoom in the cells, and biological self, or the self-organizing system, which is the human body. This is what we want to do. So okay, so let's go back to the very beginning. Let's go back to the cells. So what exactly in the cells, in the cell processing, makes a system being self-organizing system, which is distinct from the world, yeah? And, there is a lot of overlap with, previous work and, the body cognition people and active inference people, right? So if you start with the biological system, with the human body, and then you have this idea that living systems have self-sustaining property that distinguish them from inert physical systems. So if you take a snowflake, it's also a snowflake is also a self-organizing system, but that's very different from, let's say, a human body, yeah. And they are typically composed of cells, maintain a stable internal state by converting food into usable energy, grow and reproduce. So that's kind of a very basic definition of what a biological system is. Yeah, if that's the case, so we don't want to say that neurons are, or neural processing is not important, or we don't want to downplay the importance. We want to say that actually we cannot understand how they work, except if you basically see them as working in tandem with the entire cellular processing distributing across the entire body. And so it's somewhat, because I know that there are people that work with Antonia Damasio here. So it's somehow hinted to by Damasio's work before, but actually I think we go a step further, even more radical. So for instance, they say that cognition requires a nervous system without which no mental system can arise. Neural activities in brain circuits generate sensory perception, cognition, ultimately behavior. So that's the receive view. For example, it has been proposed that from the evolutionary and ontogenetic perspective, the lowest level of the mind are processed anchored in the homeostatic neural processing, right? So they basically say, okay, so you have this mental processing here, you have the top layer of the cake, but necessarily need to have an anchor, and that without that anchor, you cannot understand the cherry on the top, which are the mental processing or the subjective experience of like being me, or seeing red, or feeling pain. Hence, the deep root of sophisticated mental and cognitive processing may be traced back to the humble origins of information processing in metabolic homeostatic mechanism of ancient cells. But if that's the case, so I think we fully agree with that. But then I think one of the very important systems that are neglected is in this discussion is the immune system. And actually, interestingly enough, because people quoted Varela before, but Varela was a biologist and he wrote extensively on the immune system. And actually, he worked on the immune system before he worked on the neural system. And he said, he even coined the term of immunology. Because suppose you have a bunch of cells, yeah, developing cells. So what are the cells? And remember, you need to take development perspective. So this means that you literally have one cell and then a proliferation of cells before you actually have neurons, yeah? So then, if you have a self-organizing biological system which is viable, which is optimal, what is the system inside that system that tells the system this is me, this is not me? Because these are open systems. Yeah, you constantly need to breathe. You need to take energy from the environment, and then you can take, I don't know, oxygen or nutrients, but also you can take toxic stuff. Yeah, so you need to be able to distinguish what is good for you, what is not good for you from the very beginning before you even can make a decision based on neurons. And that's the job of the immune system. Tells you at the level of biological organization what exactly is the self, what exactly is not the self, and that has been already done, as I said, by Varela and his colleagues. And very recently, and just something we plan to take one level up with Andrew here, is it's even more mind-blowing if you think of the experience of pregnancy that I mentioned earlier, because in a pregnant state you have two immune systems that need to coordinate with each other to make sure that they have a viable state of the pregnancy, because otherwise you are just like have no. I mean, all of us here, we are the success of communication between two self-organizing biological systems that manage somehow to negotiate resources for 9 months and say, okay, I'll give you this and that, and that's going to be fine. In some cases, sadly, that's not happening. We shouldn't take it for granted. You have miscarriages and you have, people that die, giving birth. So it's a negotiation, yeah, between two biological systems. And as I said, we want to take this like one level up and to show that actually what we call the two-body problems is a universal problem. We should really start with that one, yeah, in understanding the embodiment. And this is our definition. That paper is that cognitive processing are better understood as multi-scale processing implemented at a multi-level bodily system in intricate cellular network that compose the biological human organism as a whole. So basically what we want to say is like, yes, what we call the self, whatever that means, for conscious experience is not necessarily just related to neural processing in the head or in the brain, but it's something that must be necessarily related to distributed cognitive, cellular processing across the entire body. So this means that we try to get rid of the brain and that experiment. Yeah, it's like in our framework that wouldn't even exist as a problem. So now the last part of my talk, how is this like going to implement it in the experimental part I'm doing? So this is my favorite slide. I promised my cat that I'll have at least one slide with a cat in all my talks. So I know that some of you already been to my lecture last year or in January. So if you already know the answer, don't say it. Yeah, don't cheat. But to the other people. So what do you think is the main difference between a cat and an artificial system like a robot? What is the fundamental difference between the two?
Self-replication.
Self-replication, reproduction, yeah.
Evolution.
Goals.
Teeth.
Huh?
Teeth.
Mustache.
That's been around for a number of times.
Yeah. Others? There is one that hasn't been said and it's kind of like important.
Emotional balance.
Emotional balance.
Protein.
Huh?
Protein.
Yeah. The body.
Mind.
Hmm?
One of them has like
Yeah. Well, there is, these are very beautiful answers. There is one I think is even more important. So we make robots, humans make robots, humans don't make cats. Yeah. So this means that this system has necessarily embedded in whatever we do, intrinsically some features that we put in there, right? So we share with cats something that we don't share with robots, in the sense like nobody here decided to be the way you are right now. I mean, the gender you have, the country you were born, this type of things you haven't decided. Yeah, it's just like it just happened to you, right? So this means that we don't. So we are part of something bigger, right? It's called life. So we share something we share with cats because this is how it works. But it's not something that we choose to do, and I think that's super important. So, and I also very quickly say that, well, the fact that the idea of like trying to do artificial version of ourselves and other biological system is not recent, it's not very new. Humans try to do this for ages. And again, I'm going to ask you, why do you think this is the case? So why do you think that humans try to make, I don't know, artificial version of life or artificial version of themselves? Actually, this is an important question for the topic of this conference, right? Alive and aware. So why do you think that we even have this problem, right? So it's like humans making artificial version of themselves. Can you see cats making an artificial version of themselves? No. So why do humans do this?
Want to understand ourselves.
Yeah, so we create something and then feedback. Yeah. As tools, yeah.
Because we can.
Yeah. So I do also have so why do I think Christoph is on the right track. So we want to understand ourselves, but why do we want to understand ourselves? I mean, the cat doesn't understand themselves and she's there perfectly happy, right? They just like do their stuff. So why do we have this like approach to ourselves? I want to see, I want to, disentangle what's inside my mind and what's inside my body. Control.
Also, we like evolved to be very social creatures, interested in other social agents.
Mm. So we need to connect with others, yeah. Yeah, this is like a small movie. Yeah. I like a black and white movie that shows that actually the obsession with artificial agents was quite something, like the transition between the two. Yeah. I'm going to share with you at the end of my talk my hunch about why I think this is the case. But as I said, it's like the idea of making an artificial version of themselves has been with us for a while. So this is Leonardo da Vinci. Here's another one. This is Mechanical Turk that you probably already know. And then here's my favorite, tiger eating an Englishman. This is in Victoria Albert Museum. That's life size, this, yeah. But this is precisely what we try to do in our project, is basically we have this project in the south, looking at human versus human artificial agents interactions. And you'll see how this is coming together, because I know that up to now I gave you some disparate things, yeah? And you'll say, okay, this is cool, and this is cool, and this is cool, but hey, how they actually connected? Why are you even talking about this, yeah? And I'll try to convince you that actually they come together quite nicely. So, in our project, we basically have dyads of human-human versus human-artificial agent interaction. We have 3 types of artificial embodiments. We have humanoid robots, we have virtual reality, and chatbots. And each time we are interested in what is the effect of interacting with different type of artificial minds and body on the human mind and body. Yeah, because I'm not going to say how we attribute human-like mental states to artificial agents, because it has I'm interested. I'm interested how the other way around is, like how that interacting with the human versus a different type of artificial agent, mind and body actually impacts the human mind and body, and why I'm obsessed with this. Because so I'm going to just like show 2 of the studies that we are doing, but we are doing this in a multiple way. Yeah. So I don't know why we have this. Ignore this. I don't know where it's coming. It doesn't have any meaning. Okay, so why I'm interested in this? Because you'll see that it's actually connected with my obsession with the body. So suppose I'm holding a tennis ball at the moment, yeah, a tennis ball, yeah, and a tennis ball is supposed to be like, you know, played. And in the same time, I'm measuring your physiological signals and also your neural signals, yeah. And I'm hitting the tennis ball. So I'm measuring what is happening in your body when I'm doing this hitting, yeah. And then in the same time, after I'm doing this, then I'm putting a smiley on the tennis ball, and you see me putting this smiley, and you know cognitively that that's just a tennis ball, yeah, you know. But if I smash the tennis ball with a smiley, your vitals will skyrocket. Why? Because you are pre-wired, your body, pre-reflective body itself is pre-wired to react to a potential threat to another living system in a way that you cannot control. Yeah, you know it's a tennis ball because you saw me doing this, but the body reacts in a certain way that you actually, as I said, the body knows stuff that we don't know. So I'm interested to know what the body knows without us being aware that the body knows. Yeah. So this why is because we share with the cats and other cellular biological system that's this very fundamental goal and aim, which is stay alive, don't die. And I think the question that you answer about understanding ourselves, I think is fundamentally related to this drive as well. The reason why we want to understand ourselves is because we don't want to die. We want to live more. We want to, live forever. Yeah. So that's why it's basically part of the same thing, which is having just a bit more sophisticated way to achieve exactly the same goal, which is like stay alive, don't die, and potentially reproduce. Yeah. That's something very basic. So what I want to say that in real life, if you're Aristotelian like me, we care way more about like the messy body than we care about the pure forms. Yeah, of reality. Yeah. So this means that embodiment and agency are fundamentally related in humans, and I hope I convince you that that's very important. The body itself, and this is our fundamental research question: is like, what is the relationship between the sense of self, sex embodiment, and joint agency, and human artificial agents interactions? Well. Okay, so in our studies, all our studies, we have participants that have higher and lower sense of embodiment. Yeah, so they are connected or disconnected from their bodies. Yeah, and you'll see how, because this is how it's related to the personalization. So we have dyads, human artificial agents, and the artificial agent can be either humanoid robot future reality chatbot, but our human participants, all they are divided into two groups. Yeah. So I want to understand how the way we relate to our bodies and impacts the way we relate to others and artificial others and the other way around. Yeah. So how the way we feel disconnected from our body basically impacts the way we relate to artificial others or human others. Yeah. And to understand what the personalization looks like, I think it's best to just like look from a first-person perspective. So this is a phenomenological, report from a person suffering from the personalization. So they say my perception felt as though I've been drawn back inside my head. I was like looking at the world from the back of my head and could see the back of my eye sockets. So there was this fracture between the world and me, although that my body was still in the world, the mind was only an observer. So you can see that in the case of depersonalization, why I'm interested in this phenomenon is because going back to the subject-object relationship, here you can see that the people suffering from depersonalization, they see themselves merely as object of their own experiences. Yeah, they lost connection with the subjectivity of their experiences. So they see themselves as a third-person perspective all the time. They're not really there. Is the third most common psychological symptom in the general population of anxiety and low mood, so widely spread, but understudied. Yeah, and this is so we took the condition of depersonalization as our like distinction. Why? Because we have this like idea of like the split between mind and body, right? So they feel trapped in the head and outside the body. So it's like a very nice case of like the mind-body split. Remember my first slide, my PhD slide, with like the pure mind and pure body. And if you want to know more about this, I have like a UN piece on this with Jane. Yeah. So I'm going to very quickly finish with the study design. This is something I'm planning to do here with Kizuki and Katsunori. So basically, we're going to look at, as I said, human versus human artificial agent interaction. We're going to use a very simple paradigm. It's called the joint assignment task. So this is the task. I'm sorry about the line. I don't know what it is. So we choose the simplest and most boring task ever because we don't want many compounds. So how many of you know the assignment task? Okay, quite a few. So it's quite simple. So you have two dots, two buttons, two colors, and the dot can appear either congruent or incongruent location, yeah. And your task is just like to press button on the correct, yeah. So obviously the study show that if you do the study, if you do the task individually, you are faster when the dot appears on the congruent location, right? So the dot, the blue appears on the blue button side. So that's boring. But it's really interesting when you do the task with somebody else. And when you do the task with somebody else, you shouldn't see the joint assignment effect. Why? Because you only have one button and the other person has one button, so you should ignore completely that button, but you don't. Why? Because you integrate the other action representation in your own space, and you don't act like an I, you act like a we, and you basically make exactly the same mistake as if you are alone. Yeah. So that stands like for some sort of like sense of joint agents, like a we. And previous study that show that basically, it's like a study by Sarai and colleagues, they show that if you perform the task with the human and then a humanoid robot and then with a servo motor, basically you have a higher sense of joint agency in human versus human pepper, but we have a higher sense of agency in human pepper versus human servo motor condition, so that they drew the conclusion that actually the embodiment, the shape of the artificial other counts for the sense of we agency. And we want to try exactly the same thing. We're going to also take the physiological measures, and as I said, our participants will be divided into high and low embodiment. I don't have the slide here, but my students sent me the preliminary results 1 week ago, and I can show you, because basically we test the level of connectedness in one's body before and after this interaction with the robot and the human, and we found that paradoxically, when you feel disconnected from the body and you interact with the robot, you feel more connected to your body than if you interact with the human, which is still need to figure out why that's the case. Yeah. Yeah, and we're taking this in the fall. We're going to do this because up to now we took just the physiological measure. We're going to take also the FNIRS measures. And we're going to do this in collaboration with people in Poland and in Zurich. And we're going to do also in this in VR, and maybe collaboration with you as well, yeah, on this. This is a very nice study that is done by Altea Vani on joint assignment task in VR. So basically, we do exactly the same task, but in virtual reality. So we created the joint assignment task in VR. We have like the human avatars, and we created a pepper avatar. And basically in VR, you can do the task either as Pepper or as a human, and your co-agent will be either Pepper or as a human, and each time you'll be either connected, disconnected from your body. So that is going to be our study. It's exactly the same. As I said, it's like I wanted a very simple paradigm, like the during assignment task, and let's see how we'll go, because we are and we're about to kick off the study. So basically, in the first condition, going to be a human, gender matched, and then in the second condition going to be a pepper role. I'm also developing this. I'm going very quickly through this to finish. So I'm trying to combine basically social robotics with VR in the real world. So I'm working with a team in Paris in United Robotics. So this is something also I'm interested in collaborating with you here. If you are open for collaboration. So here, basically, you are in VR, but you see the world from Pepper, and basically when you move your body, Pepper moves into the world. It's quite uncanny, because if I turn my head to the right, I can see, no, to the left, I can see myself, yeah? Yeah, does this make sense? Yeah. So that's something we plan to do in the future. So in the pipeline, so that's something very fresh I can share with you. So we recently got awarded fellowship and a grant. We're going to work on hybrid agency with Michael and Ruth Hortensius, and recently with Takashi Kigami. We have a paper coming together. And we're going to look at this relationship. We'll take on one step further, this idea of like embodied AI, but in like the previous approaches, as I said, what we are really interested in is not the neural networks, artificial neural networks. We are interested in basically in biological cellular processing, like a bioelectrical communication between the cells at the embodied level, not just what is happening in the brain. This is what we plan to do. So, because this is why I spend so much time bored you with this the immune system and the cellular system, because we really want to get rid of focus on just in the head and the neurocentric perspective. We want to go back to the embodied and really talk about the embodied AI, not as if I'm gluing the body to the artificial mind, as I said at the beginning. I don't think that's the right way to talk about embodied AI. Our way to talk about embodied AI or artificial agents is to talk about how you create hybrid systems at the level of like cellular system, not just like neural system. I think why is because you need, in order to understand how the organism and the system works as an autonomous one, you need to start with the fundamental bits. And this is also very recent, so we've got some seed funding to work on a project called Smoky Mirrors, a self-other mirroring in virtual reality. We're going to do hybrid scanning as well as based between Germany and Finland and Portugal. Here we're going to look at non-verbal communication, body-based communication between two agents in real time. Because again, I'm interested in how the body knows stuff that the mind doesn't. Yeah, and I wanted to invite you to Lisbon. Some of the people here are going to be speakers in Lisbon, so we're going to have a very nice conference on embodied selfhood and agency in humans and biological systems. We're going to also have like artwork, immersive artwork. It's like done by this beautiful team. Basically, what we developed choreography, synchronized, asynchronized body movements in dancers. I'm going to record in real time their heartbeats. and the body movements. So we're going to look at heartbeat synchronization, body synchronization as projected on the screen. We're going to also take the sensory, the physiological signals of the audience, just to see, just by passively looking at the people body dancing, you also synchronize your heartbeat to the people on the stage. And with that, I would like to thank my funder for giving me the means to do all these ideas and put them in practice, my lab for making the work, the hard work behind it, and of course you for your attention. Thank you.
For wonderful. So we'll start from philosophy, psychological experiment, and even AI and artwork. So we have around 20 minutes or a bit more for taking questions or comment.
Almost 30.
Almost 30 minutes. Okay. You have a mic?
Yeah, thank you very much for the wonderful talk. It was very inspiring. I have a question. So, for you, the sense of agency and sense of reflective self are kind of fundamental to the experience. Am I right in
Yes.
thinking this? Okay. So, and there are like some experiences, for example, the one induced by very strong psychedelics, just as by the neo-DMT, but that's okay. I mean, in some senses, that kind of they can induce the dissolution of this sense of pre-reflective self and also the agency, not just the agency of your behavior, but the agency of your own thinking. So what do you think of that?
Yeah. So thank you so much. That's super interesting and super important. So I have a lot of work. I didn't put everything on the slides, but I have actually a recent paper called Selfless Minds, Unlimited Bodies. Yeah. So what I want to say is what is happening in this case of like where people feel that they are losing themselves, like ego dissolution, like self-dissolution. What is happening is what is really dissoluted in a certain way to map the relationship between certain processing and neuronal experiences. Yeah? And gain new ways. So what I want to say is that the experience of not having no self is still given to someone, means you. That's what we reflect self. You cannot have an experience without being related to yourself. Yeah. So the experience of being no one is given to someone, meaning you. Yeah. So the self is still there and has to be there. I mean, the only time when radically you lose yourself is when you die. It's like because even though during and this is why I want to say that embodiment is so important, because even though during this radical alteration of your typical experience, like meditation or psychedelics, I mean, your brain is still receiving signal from your heart. Yeah. So this means that at the very basic level, the pre-reflective body itself is still functioning, needs to function. It functions during the sleep, it functions during anesthesia, it functions during, But what have different is the experience, how you relate to, let's say, awareness of the experiences that changes, and I argue that, yeah. So it's like we have a very different way to map reality, to perceive reality, but you're still perceiving reality from your perspective, yeah. From, the self perspective, yeah. So, and the radical claim I want to make in this paper is like, it's related to not psychedelics, but to meditation. What I want to say is that the high experience meditation, when they say that they lose themselves, basically they don't lose themselves, they just like experience the connectedness that they have between their own self and the body in a openness sense, and then that becomes this like oneness with the universe, but it's still one. The oneness is the stuff, right? Just like one thing, other thing. Yeah. Yeah. So it's some sort of like for lack of a better word, I would say a limited body, but it's still my body.
Can you, I don't want to ask you a dumb question. Can you go back to the slide on one of those slides of perceptual awareness, the one with the spatial perspective.
How you mean with the ball one?
Yeah.
This one?
Not the other one.
This one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So, point to the experience inside relates to an object there. I mean, it's something which can all agree. But I mean, the same object can be, at least can be processed by the brain without an experienced subject, so unconsciously. And does it mean, so is it kind of a process that is, in your view, still self-related or not?
Yeah, so because I start with the biology, as I said, the biogenic approach. So I like psychological, I ask psychological questions if they were biological questions, in a sense like whether we like it or not. And we start from this like animal perspective, yeah. If that's the case, this means that the task number one of any biological self-organizing system is to keep track of the self. And he has to do this like in a very, I would say, automatic way, but in a smooth way, in a flow way, right? So this means that you can be aware of you being aware. So you can take like a meta-awareness approach to your own experiences. But necessarily all the experience, this is what phenomenologists say, that they are experienced from the subject perspective, right? So all our experiences are subjective, even when you sleep. So that's a radical claim that phenomenologists will say. And actually, this is what all these people like sometimes says, like the psychoanalysts who say, well, you know, it's like you bring into your awareness the deeply roots that you don't realize. And if you don't bring the unconscious, the unconscious will guide you the entire life. You're keep doing mistakes and keep doing over and over the same, you know, changes, some choices that will bring you back to the wall, and you know, say why. So there is this idea that, you know, we have this deeply rooted experiences that come from, well, our early experiences and whatever your experiences have been before, but that necessarily is subjective. Yeah. So yes. So to answer the question, yes, I would say that there is always a subject of an experience there.
But I mean, you can be affected by stimuli unconsciously. You are not experiencing, for instance, the difference between stimuli. So my question is not an experience, but it is still self-related.
I see what you mean. Okay, so actually, that's a very good point. So I actually need to write that paper first, because now I see what. So I have in my head a paper called Two Notions of Experience. So I think people mean by experience two different things. Yeah. So on one hand, there's the thing that you have in mind, which is phenomenologists will call experiential. So what is this likeness of phenomenology? Yeah. So that's something that, you know, brings to you like what is this likeness? Yeah. And another way is like my grandmother's way, which is like I'm an experienced wine bottle opener because I opened a lot of wine bottles before. So this means I'm an experienced person. We have this expression, right? This means somebody has a lot of experience. And experience in this sense means going through events, exploring. In that case, unicellular organisms have experiences because they explore stuff, they go through things. Yeah. And that's the etymological sense of what experience means, right? And that's an ontological way of being for biological systems. And this is, I think that's important for me to write that paper first because what I want to say, if that's the case, this means that the thing of going through, it's different in the different type of systems, and then makes absolutely no sense to extrapolate the experience of the humans into the artificial agents. They may have some sort of awareness, you know, the way they explore the world, that's fine. But I think intuitively what we kind of like try to extrapolate into today, it's like take our experiential thing and put it there. I think that's something we are doing. And I think we are doing for a very basic reason. It's like, we don't want to die. Yeah. And you have this like upload series, which I nicely captured this very nice idea. So suppose you manage to upload, you know, take yourself from the head and put it in a virtual body and live forever. Yeah, so then you gain eternity. You don't die anymore because you have a virtual body. The messy body is out of the picture. You have a virtual one. can live forever, and then you just like put your mental process in some other system, like, you know, and then that's fine, you're just like living forever. That only works if you take this like split approach, which I think is wrong. I think the real question is like how you create system that self-organize and self-differentiate by very at the cellular level, not just neural level.
Great question. How do you expect consciousness to change as incubator technology improves and you get all the way to the artificial womb?
Yeah, so I have a radical take on that too. Yeah. So first of all, I want to say that there is no such a thing as consciousness. I'm very, very careful on this thing. I'm saying we shouldn't talk about consciousness as a thing, like one thing. So when people talk about consciousness studies, consciousness, they talk about noun like a thing, right? As I say, you take like a ball from one place to another. I think that's wrong. I think consciousness should always come with something else. In my case, I would say experience. So if that's the case, then this means that whatever we have as an experience, like an interaction between a system and a closed environment, it's not as if we kept one fixed and the other one can change. We change this, we change the other, right? So it's going to be more. So I expect that that might be possible, I mean, technologically speaking, yeah. But I think it will give rise to very different experiences than the one we have in a natural environment. Right? Unless we create like a replica of like the, you know, biological with the system working and, you know, working around and having exactly the same, I know, heartbeats and warmth and gravitational friction and this type of things. Yeah. So that yeah. But then it's like you just like create another human body. That's not an artificial system anymore.
Okay, so thanks for your talk. I was sympathetic with a lot of it, but I something made me pause about your the vehemence of your certainty that everything there must be a self, even when people say there's not. And it made me wonder whether this is a testable notion then in that case. If it's not, then maybe it's a conceptual claim. And if it's a conceptual claim, is it actually so trivial? Is it actually trivial that we're actually talking past each other when people think they're claiming something substantive, like claiming that there's.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think this is highly testable. So and actually some people have already started with it in a different level. So there are more work showing that what we call mental disorders are highly associated with inflammatory response, inflammatory response to the immune system. And if I'm right, this means that that's just making the self system, yeah. So what we call mental disorder might be actually related to, you know, the self, the I disorder, in a very atypical way of like, but highly morbid, because it's like it's an atypical inflammatory response to something that is happening. And many of the things, I know I experienced also myself, I think everyone here, especially after COVID, experienced like mental health issues. But you clearly, you didn't have just mental health issues, you also had like, I don't know, headaches and, you know, stretches and, you know, your skin was like dry or, you know, sweating too much. So there is just one single system, yeah? What I'm trying to say is that we conveniently split it because, as I said, as a coping mechanism with the fact that we don't want to die, which is like a perfectly reasonable, you know, approach to do, yeah? So if you know that you're going to be the wall, you make yourself a story that there is something, you know, behind that wall that you're, you know, working and be nice, because otherwise you're not going to hell. So yeah, it's something very human and very natural to do, yeah. But I don't think, I think the system, like the Mother Nature created as one single integrated system, yeah. And we conceptually distinguish, split it into.
Hi, my question is about the premise of your talk, which is that I think very few people disagree that for humans and possibly most non-human animals, relationship with the environment and having a body, relationship with other bodies are crucial for for genetic, ontogenetic reasons, and also for consciousness or having a self or a mind. But the question is it necessary, right? It could be contingently true that biological organisms have formed this way and our cognition is really shaped by that. But we are now in a time where Alison Water is developing, brain organoids that have never interacted with an environment. We can create slabs of neurons that replicate different specialized sensory areas of the cortex. And even if they don't have any inputs and any outputs, we can observe rhythms like delta waves and even rhythms that resembles the ones our brain is alive and conscious. And why wouldn't that feel like something, or even in your definition, have a mind, even if it's in principle really just completely disconnected from a body, never interacted with a body, never had a body, never will be.
Yeah, but this is not what I'm trying to question. What I'm trying to question is, I think the danger here is like people do this like sleep without realizing is that we talk about our conscious experiences, like what is life for us to drink wine, whatever, feel pain. And then we create this organism and say, wow, maybe they also, feel pain. But the thing is, if I'm right, then the type of experience, but experience not in the sense of experience, but the type of like exploration will be fundamentally different from what we say. And then why we even have this conversation about why these things are conscious as we are, right? So I think that the danger here is like to project and superimpose our way of understanding to this system, and then ask, oh, how about the synthetic suffrage, and the other thing. So I think because this life will happen, because it is us who is doing this system, necessarily, whether we like it or not, we're going to smuggle in things that we are bringing to the system, like our projection, I say, But I think danger, that's a dangerous way to that's a dangerous way to go, because it's almost like a novel. It's just like once you create a novel, then the novel is out there and the world has its own life, and then it's like out of your hands, So I think that's the what I want to say. It's just like whatever type of processing is happening in those systems. What is the reason for us to want those systems to be like us, and why we ask for the cells, why they have conscious experiences? Because when people talk about conscious experience, they talk about our conscious experience. This is what the intuition we have. It's our understanding, and then we just like superimpose that on our system. I think that's the step which is unwarranted.
Clarification. I didn't understand if you're saying that they are not going to have a conscious experience because they're going to be different and have a body, or if they have any, it will be very different. Which one is that? Because of course there's ethical implications,
Yeah.
So which one is that?
So I think whatever type of exploratory behavior or experience, but in the first sense I said, it will have, that will be not different in degree, but different in nature from a system that we have in biology. Simply because I see those two intrinsically connected, in the case of humans, biological system.
Thank you for a very rich talk. I had a question about the cat.
Yeah.
So you made the point that an important difference between the cat and the robot is that we design the robot and not the cat. And I'm trying to understand the argument behind that. For example, what if a robot designed another robot? Would that make it more like a cat in your view?
No, so what I'm trying to say is that you haven't designed yourself. Yeah, so it's like, we haven't designed the cats and we haven't designed ourselves. Is what I'm trying to say. So there's certain type, so we can reproduce ourselves by a certain type of like biological system, but we don't design ourselves, yeah? We can design, so this is the difference. So you have an artifact, so you can, you know, build something from scratch. But being the way humans are is not the choice that we made. You know what I mean? It's like with the cat. So we don't do cats, we don't do humans. We don't create ourselves. This is what I'm saying. Yeah? So we are part of something bigger, which is some sort of like form of like biological life, or what you like, and some what you God, or spiritual, whatever. It's up there. But what I want to say is that we don't have any. I mean, why do we have two hands? I mean, it's not a choice. Yeah. When I say you can design something that you, I don't know, you Pinocchio, that looks like that, you know, and we are in control of something. So that's the fundamental difference. So this means that if that's the case, this means that we need to focus on the things that we share with cats, because the thing we share is that the thing that we like you imagine like the older Europe was saying that in order to understand ourselves, going back to Christoph, like self-knowledge, we cannot go to bedrock where it's like we are already on open sea, on the moving boat, and we try to figure out how the boat works while we're moving into the sea, and we don't have the chance to actually park it on a solid rock, dismantle it, mechanically put it back, because if you do so, you die. So this means that we need to understand ourselves while at the same time being part of something that we haven't designed.
Let's take two last questions in the course. Are you happy to consider agents that are not cognitive and cognitive agents and cognitive systems that are not agents?
So I'm happy to
Consider agents without cognition or cognitive systems without agents.
So in the paper with Mike 11, we have a very minimal definition of cognition. Yeah. So we don't take like I don't know, you know, sort of like cognitive processes, you know, some sort of like meta awareness. So for us, cognitive processing is some sort of like information processing based on decisions that you make. University can be go right, go left or go right. Yeah. And for instance, like unicellular organisms are cognitive agents because they need to explore environment to get to.
Yeah, I think I'm going more general, like less biology. Like, do you want to start from biology, or are you ready even to go one step back and say, I don't even need a system to be living, and it will still be an agent and do amazing things?
So I think a robot is an agent, yeah. But this is why I made a distinction at the beginning of the talk about the distinction between doing stuff, yeah, agents can do stuff, a robot does stuff, and the sense of agency and the sense of being in control, which is the phenomenological experience of stuff, and that I would dispute the fact that an artificial agent has a sense of agency. It does stuff. Probably better than I do, most likely. But that experience in the sense like the biological one, that's something that biological systems have.
I have kind of a basic question, but at the beginning of the talk, you mentioned that the body within a body, that perspective is kind of fundamental. So my question is just where does that leave the sense?
Yes. Yeah, so I mean, So I think you have, if you take a chicken, yeah, they still need some sort of like, close contact, yeah, to perform like the full fledged biological development, because I don't know if you saw, but you have eggs and the chicken needs to be on top of the eggs, and so they need to be on top of the egg for a certain period, because otherwise the egg will die. Now, there is an interesting question, and I actually, this is a beautiful example for the relationship between the organism and the environment. I think there is a species of lizard. I can't remember, I need to check because I need to put in a stat, because that's a very good example. So it's exactly the same, but depending whether they live in the cold or warm, they either lay eggs or they bear their babies in the body, yeah? Because if it's cold, they keep it in the body to keep it warm longer. But if it's warm, they say, oh, that's okay, I can be in the sun and on the rock somewhere, and then hopefully nobody will eat them, yeah, where I can get grab some food, yeah. Or if it's cold, I'm going to take them with me, you know, to be safe side. And it's exactly the same species. So I think it's relationship with environment, but I would still argue that there's still in biological system there still needs to be some sort of like chain, like transmission. Yeah, and in case of the mammals or in case of like the animals, then they need to be like yeah, mutually close to each other.
Okay, it's time up. So thank you very much again, Shaun.